Does that, to touch on the AI piece a little bit, does that, how do you view humans versus AI? Like, do you view that we are always superior to any AI system? Like, and I know we don't know how the brain works fully, so maybe it's an unfair question to ask. But at its root, do you think of us just as like a really sophisticated machine learning type AI that's evolving as we go? Is it comparable?
There is also another really good book on that is Being You.
Okay.
Being You by Anil Seth talks about consciousness, like human consciousness, and how he sort of say this is really interesting. I find it so interesting where he said human consciousness, how the brain works is actually a controlled hallucination,
Mm.
where the way we see, sometimes we have these optical illusions and stuff like that. These are signs that says how our human brain is only making prediction of the real world.
Mm.
And and that's sort of like what the closest my little bit of understanding of like what consciousness is that um is that yeah, something that is really hard to solve, because they say it's a hard problem, right? Like my consciousness is really only to me. Like how can I explain it to you? Because
Mm.
and then how can you validate my consciousness? That's the hard problem, right? And so if you relate that to AI, I think it's completely different,
Mm.
at least to what the AI that we know today. The way I sort of explain is that the AI technology that we have today are really narrow and simple, like Tesla self-driving car. It can only do one thing. And it's not what we call a general AI, where like you see in the movie like Terminator, that AI can actually be conscious
Mm. Mm.
and sort of has an objective, like driven internally. That sort of like general AI, it's not available yet. It could be decades or centuries away. It's really, really far from us. There are other critics out there that may think differently. They may think that it's quite close to achieve that general AI. But for my belief is that yeah, what we have today is quite narrow, it's quite simple, and we are nowhere near where that um the danger of where the AI consciousness is. That
So
makes
there's
sense.
almost, is it fair to say like th- there's almost like a magic maybe not the right word, but there's a magic to how our mind, how our consciousness functions that we do not fully understand. And almost therefore by definition, like AI, because we understand AI, because we know how to program it and design it, it's finite, it's fixed, it's narrow, as you said, versus the mind, we can't even begin to fathom exactly how it works. So to say that those two things are the same is impossible. There's something completely unexplainable in consciousness that is explainable in AI, therefore it can't be at that level. Is that kind of a simple layman's way to think about it in some ways?
Yeah, it's like I sort of think a consciousness, it's a mystery that I don't think it can be solved.
Mm.
Like it's there's no amount of thinking and stuff that we can actually solve that mystery.
Mm.
That's it. um and if we try to like sort of relate one thing that can't be solved to another artificial intelligence that human creates, I think it's just like this doesn't match. It's just
Yeah.
completely two
Yeah.
different things. It's and the point about human making prediction of the real world is that this is exactly what we do. We're trying to relate something that's very software based, that could look quite similar to what human consciousness is.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, they are likely to be the
Mm.
same, or they could be the same in the future. But I don't think so. It's like it's very, very different thing.
Mm.
Like
Yeah,
Um,
consciousness is
I
trippy.
don't
I
know
mean,
whether it makes sense or not, but
no,
yeah.
well, it makes sense. It doesn't make sense overall because we don't understand it. But in the way that you're explaining how it doesn't make sense makes sense. And it's a tricky thing. I've been reading the book I'm reading right, Immanuel Kant, the philosopher. I think he's German. Um, he wrote a whole book. I'm terrible with names too. I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's the Critique of Pure Reason. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like halfway through it, and truth be told, and maybe it's just a reflection of me, it's a painful book to read because it's like very dense
Wow.
and very redundant. But my takeaways from it are very much in line with what you're saying, where he's trying to understand what actually is cognition, what is our ability to reason, like at a very base level, what actually is it? And he has a really interesting take that he explains in a lot of different ways. So I'll probably oversimplify it and maybe bastardize it a bit, but it's in the vein of what you're saying of like, all we know is the appearances of what we see, the perception of what we see through our own cognition and intuition. We never actually can understand the world for what it is because our only way to make sense of the world is processed through our own mind. And as soon as it goes through our own mind, it's a perception, it's a prediction, it's all that stuff. And it's this really interesting thing to think about that says we as humans will never understand anything in the world for what it actually is. We can't by definition of it.